Hello quilty friends and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel and I make videos about quilting and my creative life. Anywhere that you can find me on the web is listed down in the description box below. Today we are going to be doing something that I never really do, and that's sewing with dark and black fabric. I've decided to make a foundation paper piece Halloween cushion. You probably will have already seen it from the thumbnail of the video, and I want to challenge myself with this cushion and put a zipper in the back rather than doing an envelope back, which is what I usually do. This cushion will be a gift for my sister, and that's why I'm using black fabric rather than my usual pinks and pastels. So I thought I'd share with you a little vlog of making the cushion to inspire you for some seasonal decorations. I'm definitely going to do a Christmas themed one if this one goes well, and that one will be for me. So let's get started. First thing I need to do is print out the foundation paper piece pattern. I'll be using the Mumbin A4 wireless thermal printer to print my foundation paper piece patterns. I find this is such a great printer that I've shown on my channel a couple of times before. The printer is wireless, lightweight and compact, and it means that there's no cartridges for ink replacement because it's a thermal printer. You simply import your documents into the app and press print, and it will print away directly from Bluetooth devices. Because it's a thermal paper, it makes it slightly thinner and therefore easier to remove when you actually do foundation paper piecing. It's one of those printers that would be great for packing up and taking to a craft group, but I find it's also brilliant for just storing away in a tight space. Check the description for the link to purchase the printer and also an exclusive discount code. And thank you so much to Mumbin for sponsoring this video and once again supporting the channel. The pattern that I'm using today is by a company called Jo, June and May. You can purchase it directly from Etsy, but I'll leave the link in the description. So I'm just about to start the sewing aspect of the foundation paper piecing, and I wanted to give you a few tips because I really love foundation paper piecing. It was kind of the thing that got me hooked on machine quilting and machine piecing, mainly because of the accuracy. It's a really great way to create something quite intricate and accurate with minimal accurate effort. So when I cut my pieces, I always cut straight on the dotted line. This next solid line here will be 1/4 of an inch away, and that's the joining line. So this outer line is where you cut to, and then that's where you'll trim your block to that size as well. You do stitch through the paper, so you want to shorten your stitch length. And also it can help to have a bit of a larger needle on. Don't have a really thin needle. I think I've got an 80 needle on there. A little bit of a larger needle will make larger holes, and then the perforation on the paper will be larger and it will be easier to remove the paper. Because I'm using the thermal printer paper, it's a little bit of a thinner paper anyway, so it is easier to rip and then remove. I also like to seam roll in between sewing and folding back. I'll show you that as we go. If you're using regular printer paper, you can iron it if you want to, but I tend to use a seam roller regardless of the type of paper. And it is important to do that seam rolling just to get that nice press. And because I'm going to be using black fabric, I'm going to colour match the thread. I'm going to use black thread, just because sometimes you can see the stitches very slightly, so I don't want to use white thread. I'm going to use a dark thread. So this is my block now, all done. So this is the first section, and then you then have to do multiple ones. I won't show you the rest because this is a paid for pattern. I don't want to disclose all of the information. So now we put it face side down and trim at these lines. And then this is when you see your block really start to take shape. So here in the pattern there is actually black, and see those two white pieces are continuing, but in the pattern there's a gap in between. But when we take into account that we're going to be joining them here on this line, there will be a gap like that. So yeah, I don't worry too much if it's missing a tiny little bit, because again it's going to get caught in all of the seam allowance. So let's get cracking with this and see where it takes us. So I've done all of the sewing bits together, so I'm just trying to figure out how it all goes together. That goes something like that. I'll have a proper read of the instructions, because on the instructions it does tell me what order to sew them together in. I don't know if his face is the right way round, and then I've got a lot of these extra pieces that haven't got any black that need to slot in and create this. I really like this fabric, because even though you've broke into it quite a few times, like here, you can still see that it's a cobweb. Sometimes it can be difficult to use a patterned fabric as the background for foundation paper piecing, because you end up cutting into it so much, but I think the cobwebs go really nicely. And then this black fabric has got a little bit of a pattern on it as well, so it just adds a bit more interest. So let me get these assembled together and hopefully it will look how it's supposed to. So I've now done the main body, the main body of the cushion. I'm thinking that what I want to do is add some 2.5 inch squares all around the edge, and then I'll have like a thick binding around the edge of the cushion, just because I don't think that's big enough to be a cushion really. And prior to starting that project, so these fabrics I bought with my sister in mind, but I wasn't sure if I'd need anything else, so I actually raided her scraps for things that I thought would go, and she's actually very kindly given me she didn't give them, I just went upstairs and she's like, yeah, you can take them. So lots of fabrics that will go with this, some that I don't think will go that well. This one will be nice. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut a bunch of 2.5 inch squares and put those around the edge. I've also got this scrap bag that I bought. Whenever I see something that I think that's my sister's colours, I pick them up because they're not my colours, so I can't pull anything from my stash. So yeah, I think I'll do 2.5 inch squares all the way around the edge, and then the back I'll tackle all of that tomorrow. I might do a little bit of prep. In one of my recent videos, I said that sometimes the way that I edit the videos, they make me look more productive than I am, or as if I've done something in a whole day. And in reality, it's several days and it's all cut together. And some people in the comments said that they really liked that reassurance. So I'm going to start telling you when it's the end of a day, a start of a day, that type of thing. So let me know if you also like that. I'm going to leave this here for today. I'm going to remove the papers, so I'll do that, but I've got to go to the doctor's for a flu jab and just a health check. so I don't think I want to sew on this after the flu jab. After I've already had a really bad cold this week, I'm just going to rest, and I think I'm desperate to sew some pink after this black. And I also need to think about how I want to quilt this. I think I'm going to have to do black quilting and then white quilting, I think, in 2 separate parts, because I don't want white going through the crow. So let's get some of the papers removed and then I'll see you tomorrow. It's now the next morning, and last night I just spent some time cutting some 2.5-inch squares. There's 2 of most of them, 3 of some. I'm not sure about this one because this is the only one that's fussy cut. That is a frog, but you can't see it in that one. So I'm not sure what that would look like. I don't know if it will spoil it and detract away from the rest. I'll have a look what it looks like. So I'm going to do a strip of 2.5-inch squares all the way around. The crow is still underneath there, and then what I'm thinking is I'm going to use this fabric as the binding for the cushion. But obviously before we even get to that point, I've got to quilt the front. So I'm going to attach these 2.5-inch squares, and we'll see how it's looking. The cushion cover, the front, is now done. How good does that look? So I'm now just going to baste it down onto my wadding and start the quilting. I'm not sure what this wadding is that I'm using. I bought some wadding. It's quite stiff. And I bought it, and it was going to be for my design board originally because it does grip fabric quite well. I didn't end up using it because it's not very wide. I think it was only like 1 metre wide or something. I thought it was doubled over at the time that I bought it, and it's actually great for things that aren't quilts because it's really stiff. So for the cushion cover, I think it will give it a nice bit of body. So I like to spray baste. I think the brand might be called Hemline, I'm not sure. It was from Hobbycraft and you buy it on the roll. And then whenever I've done any basting, I always like to give it an iron. I don't know why. I feel like it makes a really good finish. I think everything sticks to the wadding a little bit better. This one's going to be a hard one to quilt just because of where to actually quilt it. So I'm going to try and follow the outline of the crow but inside and use a black thread for that. And then I think I'll quilt around the edges here in black, and then I'll use a neutral and try and do a bit of quilting in the middle. So now I'm at that stressful part where I need to insert the zip. I'm not too bad with zips, but this zip is literally the right size, which is nerve-wracking. So I've got 2 panels here and here for the back. I've quilted them. So I'm going to lay my zip right sides down. Move that into the middle a little bit. I've already tacked both of the ends so that the zip can't shoot off. I'll use some clips for this, and I'm just going to clip it so that the main part of the zip is pointing down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way along there on the machine. And then once you've done that, you're just going to fold the zip back. And then what we can do is top stitch all along that edge. I don't know if I joined my zip quite close enough, but just fold it back and then top stitch all along there. When you're doing top stitching, it is good to have it the same width, the same stitch length as your quilting. So now we need the top half of the panel, and then you need a strip of fabric that conceals your zip. Put that raw edges together. Mine is 3 inches, yep, 3 inches, folded in half. Put that so it's facing down, and then bring your top panel and do the same thing. Lay that down, just lining up all the edges. And then what I do is flip it so that it's the correct way and just check that it's going to come out right. So you'll flip it like that, yep, the zip, and then the flap will be loose at that point, so then you then fold it down to hide the zip. I do find it easier to still have the zip zipped up rather than flapping about everywhere, so just repeat the same process with that. So let's have a look then. So yeah, you open that out, perfect. So that will fold down to cover everything. We still need to add the top stitching, so just fold it back and we'll top stitch in the same way. When you're adding the top stitching, you don't want to stitch the flap the wrong way. You want to have the flap over the zip. So it might be quite difficult to see where your zip actually is, but just add top stitching right along. And there you go, that's what your zip will look like. When you join everything at the edge, you'll catch this in so that this flap will stay down. If you use a nylon zip, you'll have no issues sewing over that. Just go slowly and avoid your pull. So when you're actually putting them together, we're going to join from the outside so that the raw edges are on the outside. I haven't bothered to line this. So you just want to make sure that when you get to this back piece that your flap is folded down. Maybe put some clips over it so that it stays down. So clip all the way around the edge. And then all we're going to do is just join all the way around the edge with a 1/4 inch seam. Now all I've got is some binding strips. I've sewn them together. These are 3 inch and that's the size that I like to use for binding my quilts. I did initially, when I was thinking about making this cushion, I wanted to do binding strips that was maybe 5 inches wide, 6 inches wide, so that it would actually leave a frill that was freestanding. Some of the binding would be empty. But then when I thought about it, I thought, my sister's not much of a frill person because that's what it wouldn't be gathered or anything, but it would hang at the side. I think they're called a housewife pillowcase, where it has that little bit of a empty flap at the side, and you can achieve that by using wider binding, but it wouldn't really suit her. So I'm just going to bind this and it will just be like a bound quilt. And I tell you what, it feels really, really nice. I'm glad I decided to quilt it on both sides. So I'm going to add my binding, and then I need to go to the shop and buy a pillow insert because I'm not organised enough to know what size pillow insert before I make the cushion. So I'm going to get this done and I'll go get an insert. Look at that. Isn't that just brilliant? I love that. I love how full it is with the pillow insert. Oh, it's a bit empty at that bottom corner. It measures 18 inches, the pillow, the case. But when I went to the shop, they only had 17.5 inches or 16 inches. So I got the 17.5, and it's quite a full pillow anyway. So it fits really nicely. And with the zip, imagine if that was an envelope back, it would bulge like that. So I'm so glad that I can now do zips on the pillowcases. I feel like it would just change everything. And as a confession, when I was in the shop, I actually bought 2 more pillow inserts to make some for myself. Now that top one's feeling empty. All the corners stuffed. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a little bit of a different colour scheme to what I would usually do, and a lot of these fabrics there was pinched from my sister. This centre one on the crow, that was a ruby style fabric. I purchased that. I also purchased the cobwebs. That's a Tim Holtz fabric. When you look at it from here, it does look distressed, this stained or marked, and on the salvage there was a disclaimer saying that's how it's designed. And I think it goes with like the theme of the fabric really well, doesn't it? So I'm seeing my sister in a couple of days, so I can't wait to give this to her. She's really gonna love it, and it's very nice. I'm so inspired to make one for myself, so watch this space. Perhaps I'll go crazy on cushions. So until the next time I see you, you take care and bye bye.